Climate change and global warming have been warming ocean water. This has resulted in the massive loss of marine life ranging from coral bleaching to the creation of dead zones in the oceans. As the water warms, the coral polyps expel out the colorful algae and as a result, they become bleached or white. Further, the processes of ocean acidification and ocean deoxygenation have been killing marine life such as shelled creatures and fish. Climate change, broadly speaking, has been changing the ecosystems around the world by transforming the landscape, which means loss of habitat and food sources for many wildlife species. Whether it is threats to the polar bears, ringed seals, giant panda or monarch butterflies, climate change could be linked to the factors promoting threats to the wildlife.
Some individuals may show a heightened sympathetic response to content such as haunted house jump scares, horror movie trailers, or even videos of laughing babies, while others may not show the same response. As such, pairing indices such as either which provide a non-invasive and indirect measure of sympathetic activation with other measures such as eye tracking for visual attention, facial expressions for emotional valence, and self-report for preferences will ultimately allow you to paint a more complete picture in your research of human behavior.
The nervous system is the key communication system in the body, absorbing and producing data from the surrounding environment that unites the body and mind. The environment affects the way that the nervous system reacts to and organizes the information incoming to the brain. The basic element of the nervous system is a special cell that transmits nerve impulses through chemical and electrical signals, called a neuron. Neurons communicate both to other systems and other cells in the body due to synapses that form between the neurons, the brain and nervous system.
Making a link between a city's density and its vulnerability to epidemics may seem like an obvious connection, but it may, in fact, be off the mark. Since the outbreak of the coronavirus, COVID-19, and its spread across the globe, places with high urban population density have seemed to be especially at risk to some observers. A common argument is that high population density makes cities more vulnerable to epidemics because of the possibility of frequent interpersonal contacts. New York City is often cited as a prime example. This argument may sound straightforward, but on examination, its premise is not well grounded. If you look around the world, some extremely dense cities, such as Singapore, Seoul, and Shanghai, have outperformed many other less populated places in combating the coronavirus.
When violent conflicts broke out recently in the Philippines, Myanmar, and other parts of Southeast Asia, the action occurred not just in the streets of Marori or Mandalay, but also on social media. Social media platforms have been used to incite local activists to attack unarmed targets, and to promote intolerance and violence against ethnic or religious minorities. As Facebook, Twitter, and a slew of other global online platforms and messaging services have followed cell phone penetration into the most remote villages of Southeast Asia. Violent groups and their supporters are using increasingly sophisticated techniques to turn social media into a new front in Southeast Asia's festering subnational conflicts.
Most ornithologists work for land and wildlife agencies at the federal and state levels, or non-profit conservation organizations. They may also teach and conduct research at colleges and universities. Some work at zoos, wildlife parks, and as veterinarians and environmental scientists, though these jobs are rarely exclusive to birds. Workers in certain positions may spend a significant amount of time in the field gathering data and studying birds in their natural habitats. Fieldwork may involve travel to remote locations, including international travel. It can also involve travel by foot, exposure to all kinds of weather conditions, and isolation. Ornithologists also work in laboratories, and may process data with computers in an office setting. Most ornithologists work full-time. They may work non-standard or extended hours when doing fieldwork, such as during breeding season.
The energy cost of activities above the basic level seems to be no more in birds than in mammals. The basal metabolic rate is associated with temperature and precipitation. But the behavior of birds tends to make them engage in more energy-costly activities. They are diurnal, while mammals are nocturnal and thus are more exposed to wind, temperature fluctuation, and predators. Most can't crawl into holes and sleep like mammals. Their metabolic rate is almost always at a peak. The smaller the bird, the more the energy used per gram of body weight, because the increase in energy need doesn't increase quite as fast as weight. In the wild, a 25-gram bird has enough energy stores to last for perhaps 2 days, depending on environmental conditions, species of bird, etc. The resting metabolism and regulation of body heat are higher in winter than in summer, and reproductive energy higher in the breeding season. Resting metabolism probably requires 35–50% most of the time.
Bees are entirely dependent on flowers for food, which consists of pollen and nectar, the latter sometimes modified and stored as honey. There is no doubt that bees and the flowers that they pollinate evolved simultaneously. As bees go from flower to flower gathering pollen, a small amount is rubbed from their bodies and deposited on the flowers they visit. This loss of pollen is significant, for it often results in cross-pollination of plants. The practical value of bees as pollinators is enormously greater than the value of their honey and wax production. Male bees are usually short-lived and never collect pollen, nor do they have other responsibilities in connection with providing for the young. Female bees do all the work of nest-making and provisioning, and usually have special anatomical structures that assist them in carrying pollen. Most bees are polylectic, meaning that they gather pollen from a wide variety of flowers. However, some bees collect pollen only from flowers of certain families, others from flowers of certain colors. Oligolectic bees gather pollen from only a few related kinds of flowers. The mouth parts of bees, like the pollen collecting and pollen carrying devices, seem to be adapted to different flowers.
Today we use a place value system in Indo-Arabic numerals, 0 to 9, for calculations. The Romans utilized number symbols like I, V, X, L, C, D, M. They had no sign for 0 and no negative numbers. Therefore, there is no year 0. Experts are still wondering how the Romans calculated with their number system. No document is known that describes its handling. Dealing with their numerals is considered difficult. However, it is unbelievable that the Roman engineers constructed great buildings and that the merchants did a lot of trading without being able to calculate.
In the 1950s, scientists studying other galaxies expected gravity to cause the centers to rotate faster than the outer edges, based on the distribution of the objects inside of them. To their surprise, both regions rotated at the same rate, indicating that the spiral galaxies contained significantly more mass than they appeared to. Studies of gas inside elliptical galaxies and of clusters of galaxies revealed that this hidden matter was spread throughout the universe. Scientists have a number of potential candidates for dark matter, ranging to incredibly dim objects to strange particles. But whatever the source of both dark matter and dark energy, it is clear that the universe is affected by things that scientists can't conventionally observe.
Domestic sewage is the primary source of pathogens, disease-causing microorganisms, and putrescible organic substances. Because pathogens are excreted in feces, all sewage from cities and towns is likely to contain pathogens of some type, potentially presenting a direct threat to public health. Putrescible organic matter presents a different sort of threat to water quality. As organics are decomposed naturally in the sewage by bacteria and other microorganisms, the dissolved oxygen content of the water is depleted. This endangers the quality of lakes and streams, where high levels of oxygen are required for fish and other aquatic organisms to survive. Sewage treatment processes reduce the levels of pathogens and organics in wastewater, but they do not eliminate them completely.
Isaac Newton compared the acceleration of the moon to the acceleration of objects on Earth. Believing that gravitational forces were responsible for each, Newton was able to draw an important conclusion about the dependence of gravity upon distance. This comparison led him to conclude that the force of gravitational attraction between the Earth and other objects is inversely proportional to the distance separating the Earth's center from the object's center. But distance is not the only variable affecting the magnitude of a gravitational force.
Protein is a macronutrient that is essential to building muscle mass. It is commonly found in animal products, though is also present in other sources, such as nuts and legumes. There are 3 macronutrients: protein, fats and carbohydrates. Macronutrients provide calories, or energy. Each gram of protein contains 4 calories. Protein makes up about 15% of a person's body weight. Chemically, protein is composed of amino acids, which are organic compounds made of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen or sulfur. Amino acids are the building blocks of proteins, and proteins are the building blocks of muscle mass.
Bacteria, also called germs, are microscopic organisms not visible with the naked eye. Bacteria are everywhere, both inside and outside of your body. Bacteria can live in a variety of environments, from hot water to ice. Some bacteria are good for you, while others can make you sick. Bacteria are single-celled, or simple, organisms. Though small, bacteria are powerful and complex, and they can survive in extreme conditions. Bacteria have a tough protective coating that boosts their resistance to white blood cells in the body. Some bacteria have a tail, called a flagellum. The flagellum helps a bacterium to move around. Other bacteria have sticky hair-like appendages that help bacteria them stick to one another, hard surfaces, in human body cells. There are many bacteria in the human body, especially in the stomach and mouth. Bacteria are found on surfaces and in substances such as water, soil, and food.
Livestock plays an important role in Indian economy. About 20.5 million people depend upon livestock for their livelihood. Livestock contributed 16% to the income of small farm households as against an average of 14% for all rural households. Livestock provides livelihood to two-thirds of rural community. It also provides employment to about 8.8% of the population in India. India has vast livestock resources. Livestock sector contributes 4.11% GDP and 25.6% of total agriculture GDP. The livestock provides food items such as milk, meat and eggs for human consumption. India is number one milk producer in the world. It is producing about 176.34 million tons of milk in a year, 2017-18. Similarly, it is producing about 95.22 billions of eggs, 7.70 million tons of meat in a year.
The catastrophic impacts of climate change could not have been more pronounced when the ice sheet of Greenland began melting in the summers of 2019. Within a space of just 5 days, the ice sheets lost about 55 billion tons of water. The melting of glaciers and ice sheet is not an unusual phenomenon, but what is concerning is the alarming rate at which the melting has been going on. At this kind of rate, the entire Greenland sheet will melt within 1,000 years, which could cause up to 23 feet of sea level rise.
Poultry farming includes rearing of domestic birds like chicken, turkey, duck and geese, to produce meat or eggs in bulk quantity for food. Poultry is well known for its chicken production. Chicken raised are generally classified into two categories: layers and broilers. Chickens which are raised for eggs are known as layers, and the chicken raised for meat are known as broilers. Poultry farming is growing fast. It provides a chance to earn profit without any huge investments. Therefore, it's feasible for an average mediocre to start his own poultry business. All you need is poultry business ideas. It also provides a chance to grow fast if you work hard for it. So, it can be said that it provides you with a lot of scopes to earn well. Broilers provide a wide range of business opportunities because they are preferred by most of the people. A chicken of approximately 8 to 9 weeks with 1.5 to 2 kgs are known to be appropriate for soft and tender meat.
Vitamin A deficiency is all down to an improper diet for chickens. A clear sign of vitamin A deficiency is stunted growth in your chicks. It can also manifest in different ways, such as dry eyes or a high susceptibility to infection, but stunted growth is the easiest to spot. The best way to avoid a vitamin A deficiency is to add certain foods to their feed. Foods like broccoli and kale will do the trick. Vitamin D deficiency directly impacts egg production, so if you're breeding chickens, you'll want to keep on top of this. A deficiency can cause thin-shelled eggs because when a chick is growing, the calcium is pulled from the shell itself, and vitamin D can provide the necessary calcium. Sunlight for 30+ minutes a day will do the trick, as will cod liver oil, but since this goes hand in hand with calcium deficiency, you can add oyster shell as a snack to your chickens' diets.
The Indus River Valley Civilization, 3300-1300 BCE, also known as the Harappan Civilization, was extended from modern-day northeast Afghanistan to Pakistan and northwest India. It is often separated into three phases. The early Harappan phase from 3300 to 2600 BCE, the mature Harappan phase from 2600 to 1900 BCE, and the late Harappan phase from 1900 to 1300 BCE. The Indus cities are noted for their urban planning, a technical and political process concerned with the use of land and design of the urban environment. Important innovations of this civilization comprise standardized weights and measures, seal carving, and metallurgy with copper, bronze, lead, and tin. They have baked brick houses, elaborate drainage systems, water supply systems, and clusters of large, non-residential buildings.
Smart solar solutions basically aid in increasing the efficiency of the solar components and reducing the electricity expenses for users. These solutions help users monitor their energy consumption and communicate in real time with the components, thereby enabling them to decrease the consumption of power. The major reasons smart solar solutions are becoming popular: need for reducing the wastage of energy and need for increasing the efficiency of existing solar devices. Smart solar solutions are often integrated into the already existing PV setup, to improve the functional capabilities, including controlling and monitoring, of these components.
Probiotics are living microorganisms that confer health benefits to the host when administered in adequate amounts. However, dead bacteria and their components can also exhibit probiotic properties. Bifidobacterium and strains of lactic acid bacteria are the most widely used bacteria that exhibit probiotic properties and are included in many functional foods and dietary supplements. Probiotics have been shown to prevent and ameliorate the course of digestive disorders such as acute nosocomial and antibiotic-associated diarrhea, allergic disorders such as atopic dermatitis, eczema, and allergic rhinitis in infants, and Clostridium difficile-associated diarrhea and some inflammatory bowel disorders in adults.
The asset management is a systematic process of not only developing but also operating, upgrading, maintaining, and disposing of the assets in a cost-effective manner, which also includes risks, costs, and the performance attributes. This is mostly used in the financial sector to describe companies and people who manage the investments on behalf of others. For example, this includes the investment managers who manage the assets of a pension fund. In the present scenario, the asset management is being used not only in the business world but also in the public sectors to ensure that there is a coordinated approach for the optimization of costs, risks, sustainability and even performance.
The radio frequency, RF, range is one of the most technologically exploited portions of the electromagnetic spectrum. Although the definition is not strict, the RF spectrum commonly refers to waves with frequencies between 20 kHz and 300 GHz. This also includes microwaves, which have frequencies stretching from 300 MHz to 300 GHz. RF technology was discovered in the early days of modern physics, and it quickly became the cornerstone of mass media broadcasting. Unlike optical signals at higher frequencies, RF waves are generated with electronic circuits comprising a capacitor and an inductor. In these so-called LC circuits, electronic charge carriers can be made to oscillate and, as a consequence, emit electromagnetic radiation at the desired frequency. The faster the oscillation and the smaller the corresponding circuit, the higher the frequency of the emitted waves. Amplitude and frequency modulation of the produced waves enables the encoding of information.
An invertebrate is a species of animal which does not have a backbone, such as spiders, insects, mollusks, lobsters and crabs. It is estimated that as much as 97% of all animal species are invertebrate. Invertebrates are ectotherms, cold-blooded, They warm their bodies by absorbing heat from their surroundings. Most invertebrates live in water or spend at least some part of their life in water. Some groups of invertebrates live on land. Common examples include worms, insects and spiders. These invertebrates need to have special structures to deal with life on land. Most invertebrates change form as they grow, going through a process known as metamorphosis.
Understandably, the most immediate costs of living with volcanoes are the potential for injuries, casualties, displacement and the destruction of the built and natural environment. Volcanic eruptions produce a wide range of hazards that may occur before, during or after an eruption. These cascading consequences make them particularly dangerous. For example, the 1991 eruption of Mt. Pinatubo in the Philippines had devastating impacts. During the eruption, the heavy rainfall from the passing of Typhoon Yunai generated lahars. But due to the seasonal nature of typhoons in the region, lahars were immobilized for several years afterwards. The eruption also generated a large ash plume that caused a temporary atmospheric cooling effect for at least a year after the event.